My name is Joseph Landing. 3 months ago, I had a floater-only vitrectomy in my right eye. It's been, like I said, 3 months since then, and I thought it would be a good idea to make a personal testimony of my full experience, what kind of symptoms I had, the success of the surgery, as well as the outlook for the future. Before I go any further, I want to say that this is my own personal testimony. I am not a doctor, and I am not recommending anything to anybody. The purpose of this video is just to give you a look at what happened to me and what I experienced. That is all that this video is for, and then you can make your own thoughts about that. This is my story about what happened to me with my floater-only vitrectomy. So, I guess I'll get started. Actually, I'll say a few more things. One, this is pretty much off the cuff, just kind of a ramble, so it's not going to be, it's going to be probably a kind of long video, but I thought it'd be best just to get it raw and just go through it from the beginning all the way to the current day. A couple more things. I got the surgery done in Charleston, South Carolina. I got it done at the Charleston Retina Center by a very skilled vitreoretinal surgeon. And I got it done on September 2nd of 2020. It is now mid to late December. So without any further ado, I'll just get started on kind of where it all started. So when I was 18, freshman year of college, I was down at the University of Miami in Florida. I remember I was outside and I was reading a bulletin board. And in the middle of my reading, just line by line, just spontaneously, I realized that there was a black spot dead center in my vision, dead center. And I blinked, and I've had a couple ocular migraines in the past, visual migraines or whatever. So at first I thought it was that. So I waited a bit, and it didn't go away. The rest of the day, I walked around. It was still sunny. It was very sunny in Miami, and I just had this little black spot that I could see in my vision. It was dead center. And whether I look left or right or up or down, well, it didn't go away. It was very, very dark, very dense. Initially I didn't think much of it because I just thought it would go away. Like a lot of things, something pops up, some kind of pain or whatever, normally it goes away in a couple days, otherwise you go to the doctor. So I went about my day, tried to ignore it. It was very annoying, but tried to ignore it. And then once nightfall happened, I didn't really see it anymore. That's kind of how floaters go. During the day, they're really bad. At night, they're not so bad unless you're looking at like a white wall and there's light. So a couple days went by, and the right eye floater stayed. And then I had some more floaters show up in my left eye. And this continued. And I was like, oh God, what is this? And then it happened, and this was kind of the event horizon, the crossing the Rubicon. I had the ring show up. So I'm going to quickly, while I'm talking, I'll put some footage over of what it kind of looked like in my vision. That's going to run right now. But early on in my kind of floater journey, I had a ring and a black spot in the center. So I went to an eye doctor. I think I actually went to one in Charleston first. I had to come home for like holiday or whatever, and he told me all about them. He said these are called vitreous opacities, eye floaters, many different names. Effectively what they are is inside your eyeball is vitreous humor. It's vitreous jelly. It's effective. It's a very clear fluid, but sometimes for whatever reason, in a young person's life, it's rare. It's rare. It does not happen much in young people. It's not supposed to. Sometimes some of the vitreous clogs up or tightens, or you get a clump of vitreous that you can see, and it casts, and when light enters your eye, it hits the little vitreous clump or whatever and casts a shadow on the back of the retina. The floater that you see is not actually the clump, it's the shadow that's being cast on the back of your retina. So that's what I was told. Floaters are very common in more mature people. Typically what happens is that when you get 40, 50-ish, most people have what's called a posterior vitreous detachment, which is when the vitreous membrane on the back of your retina pulls off and comes more into the eye. This is pretty much guaranteed to happen to anyone who's lucky enough to live to 40, 50, whatever. So almost everyone develops floaters if they live long enough, but those floaters were different from mine. I didn't have a posterior vitreous attachment, and people my age, 24 or at that time 18, who develop floaters, they're not having PVDs as they're called. They're just having, for whatever reason, spontaneous floaters. And what happens in very young people my age that get floaters is sometimes they can be really, really bad, and it's not really obvious or understandable why it happens. So the eye doctor told me there is nothing that can be done about it. You'll have to get used to it. I'm sorry. And it's not a big deal. Get over it. More or less. And I went to several eye doctors and that's what they all told me. Not a big deal. Get over it. You'll get used to them. Oh my God. How many times I've heard you'll get used to them. Well, you know, if I had maybe one or two small floaters, but you don't understand, I had this ring and I had this black spot that was very dark. And you just cannot get used to it when it's dead center in your vision. But, you know, it is what it is. So I went back to Miami and I started doing some research on the internet about things that could be done for floaters. And generally it was no, there's nothing that can be done, blah, blah, blah. There was surgery, and that was so far outside the realm of even possibility to me at the time. And and the doctors that I even asked about surgery, all, you know, crazy. No one's doing eye surgery on an otherwise healthy eye at 19 or 18 or whatever. So I got back to Miami and I did actually look up something called the YAG laser. And this was my first attempt to really get rid of the floaters. So I cannot remember, I can't remember the name of the doctor, it's been like 5 years, but we tried the YAG laser. He looked in my eyes, saw the floaters and said, okay, we'll try it. And it's a trip. They sit you down, they put this like lens onto your eye. It's not comfortable. They cover in like jelly on your eye. It's like this lens that's like attached to your eye. And then they just hook you up to this machine and it's like, and then the guy's right there and he tries to shoot a laser, and both times he did it, he decided not to do it. And he told me, I'm just not risking it. Both times. He'd get it all set up, take a look at mine and just go, not gonna risk it. And the second time he said, there's nothing I can do for you, Joseph. I'm not gonna risk the laser. And I think, you know, looking back on it, I actually talked to my surgeon now in Charleston. Looking back on it, I'm so thankful that laser was not used on me. I have read stories about people getting the laser done. It does nothing. The laser is when it hits a floater, the laser comes in and hits a floater. The floater kind of breaks apart. It doesn't go away. You just get a bunch of smaller floaters, is what I generally seem to understand. So I have read people say it helped them, but I mean, no matter what, it's just going to break up your floaters and give you a bunch of smaller floaters. The real danger with the laser is that if the laser misses the floater at all, and that's very easy to do because floaters can be big cobwebs, very thin or whatever, it can hit your retina and then cause a permanent blind spot, and that's not good. So having talked to my surgeon about it with the laser, he pretty much just shut it down. He's like, no way, there's not enough evidence, there's not enough medical, I guess, evidence or case studies to prove that the laser works well, and I would not risk shooting a laser into your eye. So I did try the YAG laser, never actually had it shot on me, happy it wasn't shot on me, but it is a thing. I didn't do it. So after the laser situation, I kind of just realized that there was nothing for me. So I was maybe 19 or 20 at the time of YAG laser. And at this point, my floaters, so this is something I want to say. The eye doctors have told me that it will get better or you will get used to it. It does not. That is nonsense. Floaters get worse over time. This is a fact. Generally, bad floaters get worse. Small floaters may disappear. Bad floaters get worse over time because think about it. You have this big clump, this big strand of whatever in your eye and it's moving around. Well, every time you look left, right, up, or down, it moves, and every time it moves, it's going to pick up more stuff. So over the 6-7 years that I had these floaters in my right eye, they got worse. So I'm going to put footage over now of what my eye floaters look like in 2020. So here it is right now. The ring had branches connecting to the big black spot. The black spot had tails coming off of it. I had a ton of lines and shading down at the bottom of the ring, a ton of lines and shading at the top, a ton of lines and shading on the left side, the right side, below. It was a mess. It was a massive obstruction in my vision. So like I said, after the laser didn't happen, I went several years, just kind of dealt with it, finished up my schooling, moved around, worked in some places, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And December of 2019, it was like that. It was the holidays, and I realized I am in bad shape here. So I made an appointment, and I effectively where I was, and this is very important, and this is when I was ready to see about actual surgery. And when I started researching it more, effectively where I was within 6 years or whatever, was that I was starting to legitimately have difficulty seeing out of my right eye. It was that obstructive. Because remember the ring, all the branches, all that crap? I'm stuck in it. I can't get out. It's like your central vision, you're just stuck in it. And inside is all this mess. And So I was having significant difficulty driving. I was starting to drive like this. I was considering buying an eye patch just so I could, drive with my left eye. I hated being out. I hated being outside. The beach, ruined. Snowboarding, one of my favorite sport, all but ruined. I ended up buying a super, super dark pair of goggles. So one thing about people with floaters know this, but the less light that enters your eye, the less harsh of a shadow is cast on your retina, and thus the less visually apparent your floaters are. This is why at nighttime, I rarely saw my floaters unless I was inside with light sources. But like outside on the road, rarely ever saw them. Except for the big central black red eye floater, the very first one, which got so much worse over time. Oh my gosh. And it started out bad. But I bought really dark black ski goggles, and that allowed me to still, snowboard, but they were just so dark. Anyway, so I went 6 years of my life. I would never go outside without sunglasses on, just because that was the only way I could function. My job involves me driving a lot, and like I said, it was just getting very, very difficult. And I was significantly wondering if I was putting myself and other people on the road at risk, because if I didn't do this, you're driving and you could literally miss an entire car because a floater is in the way and you can't see it. Or a floater, or the ring comes around and I just don't see a turn signal, or I can't see a light or something. One thing I want people to really understand from this video is that floaters are very bad for the vision. A lot of doctors treat floaters, bad floaters are very bad for the vision. A lot of doctors treat every case of floater like it's nothing and that you're over-exaggerating and to get over it. That is unfair and that is cruel. Some people like me, had floaters so bad that we could barely drive and we were putting other people at risk. And I was gonna have to stop driving very, very soon. This is a legitimate medical situation. This is a legitimate medical thing, and it needs to be treated as such. Now, my floaters were terrible. When I had the surgery, afterwards, the surgeon, the nurses, they all said, you had one of the worst floaters we've ever seen. You had terrible floaters, especially for your age. If this afflicts you, it is not something that is not a big deal. If you have a couple floaters, that's not a big deal. I'm not talking about a fleck here, a strand there. I'm talking about someone who has to shut every single shutter in their apartment or house all the time. Someone who has to walk around their own apartment or house with sunglasses on, inside. Someone who can't go outside. Someone who hasn't been to the beach in years because they hate it. Because it's so hard to do anything. Because you're practically blind. So, anyways, January 2020, December 2019, I did a lot of research. Charleston has something called the Storm Eye Institute, so there's a lot of good eye doctors around here, ophthalmologists. I did research and I found that there was another answer, and this is something I actually read about the first time I looked up eye floaters, was something called a pars plana vitrectomy. A vitrectomy is when they go into the eyeball and they remove almost all the vitreous, floaters included, and then they replace it with a saline solution. So this was the surgery that I had mentioned earlier was shot down, called crazy, whatever. I went in, so Charleston Retina Center had something on their website about floaters and said that they could do vitrectomies for them. But, and this is very important, it was very clear that the surgery to do it wasn't really supposed to be on a kid. It was supposed to be on someone who's 70 years old and already has had cataracts and had lens implants, whatever. So January 2020, I went in there and I met my doctor. He got the slit lamp, he looked in my eye, and he agreed, yeah, your floaters are terrible. And I could do the surgery on you. You'd be the youngest person I've ever done the surgery on. And he sat me down and said, I don't want to do the surgery on you. I don't want to do it. He told me there is probably not a single surgeon in the entire country, and there's not many who even do the surgery. No one is going to do the surgery on you. No one. And I asked why. I knew the answer. He said, because you're 24. Because no eye surgeon, vitreoretinal surgeon, retina surgeon, whatever, wants to operate on an otherwise healthy eye. You know what my eye scored on the eye chart that day when he checked me out? 2015. I have 2015 vision in both of my eyes. That's insanity. I have incredible acuity in both my eyes. I have the eyesight of a fighter jet pilot or whatever, right? But my eyesight is so worthless because of these floaters. So worthless. It's just so ironic that I have the most crystal clear vision, but it's totally full of mud, you know? So he said, eye doctors they don't want to operate on kids. They don't want to take an otherwise healthy eye and operate on it, because once you operate on an eye, it's never the same. And you risk everything. You risk blindness. You risk many problems. Once you operate on an unoperated eye, it will never be healthy again. It's kind of a fact. Or at least it'll never be the same again. So he told me that he could do the surgery, but that I needed to do a lot of research and a lot of thinking, and everything else. So he said, come back to me when you're ready and we'll talk about it. I said, okay. So it was January. I did not come back for 6 months. During that time, I did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of looking around and thinking about things and how it was getting worse every day and how I just couldn't put it off much longer. I researched again. I read through medical journals and every case study and testimonies. I watched testimonies on YouTube till the wee hours of the morning. I went to another retina specialist and I got a second opinion from them if I should get the surgery. And they said, they don't do the surgery, I don't believe, but they said that my doctor could not recommend him more. He's one of the pioneers. And they could not recommend him more. So they said, if anyone's going to do this surgery on you, I would feel most comfortable with him doing it. And I said, okay. When it comes to doing the surgery, I had to weigh something. The side effects and the possible complications of this surgery, there are many. There are many, and you're probably going to have some. Eye surgery is not a joke, especially this is so much more intense than cataract surgery. It is the major eye surgery. Understand that, major eye surgery. Blindness, eye infection that could blind you, countless other complications, bleeding, and I'll get back on bleeding in a bit. Bleeding. There's a lot of things, and you need to be prepared for all of them. So I made the decision to get the surgery. So I went back. It had been 6 months. He looked at me again, and I said, I'm in. You got to do it. I'm begging you. He said, okay. So we got it set and whatever, and I was informed of, again, those complications, whatever. The surgery is, it's not pretty. You can watch it on YouTube. Effectively, they go in with 3 different needles, effectively 25 gauge. So they used to be bigger needles. Now they're smaller. That lowered complication rate made the surgery more successful. 25 gauge is kind of the set standard. When it comes to needles, the bigger the number, the smaller they are, I think. So 25 gauge. I have heard of the surgery starting to be done with 27 gauge. That's not the norm as far as I know. I asked the surgeon about it. He said, I do them with 25 gauge. That's what the norm is right now. I said, okay. So 27 may be the future. Maybe it'll be 30. I don't know. But I don't know much about needles, but I do know what the size of the needles were. They go in with 3 needles, and this is gruesome, but boom, boom, boom. They have something called a vitrector. So the vitrector is, in there, and effectively they're cutting the vitreous out little by little, sucking it out, and with it all the floaters. So I had a pars plana vitrectomy core. It was a core vitrectomy, not a full vitrectomy. Why was it a core? So a core vitrectomy is when they take out all the vitreous in the eye, effectively almost as much as they can, but they leave the vitreous membrane on the back of the retina. Why is that? Because in my age, you can't pull the vitreous membrane off the back of the retina without tearing the retina. He would have preferred to take it off because by pulling that off, I won't have a posterior vitreous detachment, which could, down the road, cause more floaters. He couldn't pull it off. Why? Because of my age. It always comes down to your youth. Your youth is what makes this surgery difficult. Your youth is what makes nobody want to do this surgery on you. Your youth is why the floaters are so bad. It's just a bad situation. It's a very bad situation. And I understand if you feel like your hands are tied and you don't know what to do and you're terrified and you're hating life because you can't see. So back to what I was saying, core vitrectomy, he said he would try to pull my vitreous membrane off the back of my retina. In doing that, it would make it better for the future. But what was likely to happen is that when you're young, the vitreous membrane is very tightly packed in there, and it's very hard to pull it off the retina. And if you try to pull it, you'll pull the retina off too, and congratulations, you're blind. So he said when he's in there, he would give it a couple tugs and see if it came loose. He tried it, it did not. So I still have the vitreous membrane on the back of my retina. What that means is that eventually I will have a posterior vitreous detachment, as everyone does, and I have one on this side too, but I'm gonna have this one probably at an accelerated rate. I'm probably gonna have it earlier than I normally would. What that means is when that happens, yeah, I'm gonna develop some floaters in the future, but they're almost certainly, knock on wood, they're almost certainly not gonna be as bad as what I had. He said my floaters were so bad that the floaters that I develop in the future are not gonna be as bad as that. And that's something that is fine by me. Could always have another vitrectomy. I don't think so. But he tried, and if you're my age and you get this, expect a core vitrectomy. Maybe I get lucky and they can pull it off the back, but expect a core vitrectomy. And if you have a core, it is what it is. Just, you have to accept that, yeah, I'm going to have floaters at some point again. It is what it is. But they're not going to be as bad as they were, which is why, again, I say, this is not something I would have ever considered if I did not have to have it. This is major eye surgery. So I would never have considered it if I just had 1 or 2 spots, or even 5 spots. I had something that was 1,000,000 spots, literally. I had a giant hand in front of my eye at all times. I was looking through the fingers. That's practically, that's what it felt like. So, September 2nd, I had the surgery. I went in the morning. They put you on the gurney. You get to keep your clothes on, keep your shoes on too. Hook you up in the IV. My surgery, I wasn't under a general anesthetic like with my wisdom teeth. I don't think I wasn't out. I was actually pretty cognizant, but it's a dream stage. So you're not asleep. You can see the doctors, the nurses, but I also don't remember them, going in my eye at all. I remember other things, funny, dreamy things, but. Surgery was fine. I came to, and they said, wow, you had a lot of floaters, and we got every single one, including the ring. I asked them, please don't leave the ring in, for God's sakes, don't leave the ring in. So that night, went home, was really out of it for a while because of the loopy drugs, but I, fully came to loose at about 4 p.m., 5 p.m. maybe, and I just took it real easy. That was a very painful night. Moving my right eye at all was very, it's all patched up. Moving my right eye at all was very painful. That was a painful night. Even with the painkillers, I was in a lot of pain. I went to bed early. That was it. First night's rough, not gonna lie. Next couple of days, it was still painful, but it wasn't anywhere near like that, and the pain did level off. So, initial things after the surgery. I'm just gonna go over everything that I pretty much experienced after the surgery. So, I had the first night. I had an eye patch on for 2 full days. Normally they only do 1, but when I went in the next morning, my eye pressure was so low that I decided to keep the patch on for 1 more day. So I patch on for 2 full days. After they took it off, my eyesight was worthless. It was like looking through pea soup. I could barely see my hand in front of my face this close. I was totally blind. I was effectively almost totally blind. But it got better. So This is where my biggest complication came, at least my most immediate one came through, and that was bleeding. So bleeding, like I said, is a complication, and it does happen. So, and remember what I said about being young and why being young is just the worst combination if you have floaters? So I had bleeding during the surgery. After the surgery, I bled a bit. The blood went into my eye and was floating around inside my eyeball. Guess what? You see the blood. So I'm gonna put up a little picture of here of what I saw. It was like an upside down horseshoe of blood, and it was red, very dark red, in my vision. It was big. The good thing about the blood, though, was that it stays on the peripherals of the eye. So if you look left or right, it doesn't come in the middle like the floaters, which was godsend. Oh, speaking of floaters, all gone. They were all gone. All of them. I mean, that was the most surreal thing ever. 6 years and gone. Just adios. So yeah, gone immediately. But back to the blood. Left, right, up, down. It doesn't come in your central vision. My central vision was clear. After, this was only about a week or two after when my vision cleared up. But so the blood goes into the eye, and the eye has to filter it out. And remember what I said about being young. So if you're 40 years old, if you're 50 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old, and you get this done, the blood is going to dissipate pretty fast within a month's time. But if you're my age, if you're 24, and this is my surgeon's words, the interior of your eye is very dense and very strong and tight and whatever, and it's going to take the blood longer to filter out. So I had this surgery 3 months ago. I had a horseshoe of blood. This is what I have right now. It's not bad. It is what it is. It's pretty much like right now, if I look around in this room, I actually can barely see anything. I see the spot. So right now, I've got a spot right here. It's still pretty dark. Shading right here, still pretty dark. And then just a couple thin lines and shadows. 10 times better than what I had before the surgery, 10 times. And it does get better every day. I'm gonna do a 3-month follow-up to this video, and by then I would hope that it'll either be gone or almost gone. It wouldn't surprise me if it takes up to a year for every little last bit to be gone. And other people's testimonies that I've read and seen have said that they had little spots or whatever that stuck around for quite a while. You have to realize that this surgery is not going to take your vision and bring it back to how you were when you were 7. It's not going to do it. This surgery is going to hurt your eye, and your eye will never be the same. So I'm still dealing with the blood. Is it going to go away? Yes. Is it going to go away quickly? No. Has most of it gone away? Yes. Do I still have a good bit to go away still? Yes. So that was my biggest complication, was the bleeding. But other or detours, as my surgeon said, not complications. Right after surgery, you're going to have really low eye pressure. That's just a fact. Your eye is going to eventually rebound, and your eye pressure is going to shoot up. And if it misses the mark, you will have temporary glaucoma, pretty much what it is. So you go over eye pressure, and I had that. It's about 4 or 5 days after surgery, so I get a very bad headache right here, really strong. So one thing about the surgery, I made sure that I had more than a month where I'd be in town, not needing to go anywhere, so I could fully recover. I took a full week off work. I took almost a full week off. I had like 6 days off work because the surgery was on like a Wednesday, so I took those 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. Saturday, Sunday, Monday I was in. I was not in good shape, but I was in. Monday I was doing this because I still couldn't really see it out of my eye. But like I said, so that weekend after the surgery, I called my doctor, said, hey, I'm getting a bad headache. He said, it's your eye pressure. I'll call in glaucoma drops. So I picked those up. Let me grab them. Antibiotic, glaucoma, steroid, or steroid antibiotic. I took all these for like a month after the surgery. The steroid I only took for, or maybe it was, I think it was, can't remember if it was the antibiotic I only took for 2 weeks, the steroid for 2 weeks, but I took, I think it might have been, it was the antibiotic. And then I took the steroid and the glaucoma drops for like a month. And then after that, when I had my 1 month follow-up, I did not have to take any more. So I put the glaucoma drops in, headache went away very quickly. It was great. So I had my 1 week follow-up. So at this point, I could see out of my right eye. It was pretty garbage, but I could see. It was just not great. But I had no floaters, and I had, oh God, I had the blood and everything. Had an eye test, whatever. You know, it's funny, about a week or so after, I actually managed to score 20/20 on an eye chart, which I thought was ridiculous, but I did. The first month after the surgery, your eye will rapidly get better, so long as you do what the doctor tells you and do your drops and, you know, take it easy. My eye got rapidly better. Initial things that I noticed, obviously acuity was wrecked after surgery, and it slowly came back both at distance and up close, focusing the eye, getting sharpness, being able to see the lines on your hand. I had bad glare at night. Like if I looked at a light in a dark room or even a dim room, it had a huge, you know, halo around it, you know, street lights, whatever. That lasted a while, and it got smaller and smaller over time. I think I might still have a tiny little bit larger of a glare off the right eye than left eye. Other things inside your vision. This is something you're gonna see, I saw at least. When I would close my eyes and look at a light source, and I still have a little bit of this, you'll see they're not floaters. They're like little, my surgeon called them like ghost cells, little bits of, you know, freestanding red blood cells are just still in your eye. And I think so long as I still have a bit of blood in my eye, I'm gonna have these, because as the blood breaks away, I think, and metabolizes, those will kind of go free. So you're gonna see a lot of little tiny dots. And right after the surgery, I had an ocean. It was, I called it the wash. They weren't floaters, but I mean, they were kind of like them. But they did get better over time. And now I only see a couple, which is nice. But if I like look at that light source and yeah, I've got like a few, but they're little tiny, transparent, almost transparent circles. They're interesting to say the least, but they're not floaters, and you won't really, you'll see them initially after surgery because there's so many, but it gets better. After the surgery, there's gonna be a lot of weird things you see in your eye, a lot of weird stuff, more than I can even detail. I'm not gonna talk for an hour about it. The doctors told me what to keep an eye out for danger. That was pain and, you know, loss of vision, and I didn't have any loss of vision. That's the main thing they want you to keep an eye out for, and I didn't have it. Everything else is just par for the course. You know, I still have some smaller symptoms, but again, it's been 3 months, and this was a major surgery. I think it'll be really interesting, you know, as time goes on, slowly getting better and better. But 3 months is not a long time after a major surgery. You know, if I had many other major surgeries, you don't recover, you know, to 100% as quickly. My eye right now is effectively almost 100%. In terms of visual acuity, I believe it's hit the max. I've just got, like I said, a little bit of blood left to deal with, etc. So I had my 3-month follow-up, like a couple days ago, and I scored 20/15 on the eye chart, again with the right eye, so I'm all the way back to where I was. And he looked in my eye and he effectively told me, you know, Joseph, you are good to go. You don't have to come back. You know, go in peace. He said, you know, I have his cell number. Highly recommend that. It was great to have my surgeon's direct line, so I could text him and call him if something happened. Especially that glaucoma thing was over the weekend when it happened, so that could have made things difficult. But he was able to call in the prescription himself over the weekend. I was able to go right to Harris Teeter and grab it immediately, because that was something that I can't wait. You know, if the eye pressure is going up, you could get eye damage, you know, permanent eye damage if it kept going up, and pain. Oh my gosh, the pain was getting bad. So a direct line to him really helped out a lot. So, but yeah, now that, you know, they told me, you know, you're pretty much good to go. You know, the blood will, you know, the remaining, you know, complications, side effects will continue to dissipate over time. Here I am. I decided it would be good to, you know, do this video. There's not much else to say right now. I would say all the floaters are gone. Actually real quick, I did have, shortly after the surgery, I did actually develop a floater. It was like a little tentacle that came up. I haven't seen that in a long time, like 2 months. I'm not gonna deliberately look for it. It may still be there, it may not be. It changed a lot. I asked the doctor about it. He said, it may go away, it may not. It could be a little bit of vitreous left over. Like I said, I haven't seen it in a long time. It was very, very transparent. So it wasn't anything like what I had. And I am very pleased with it so far. It's changed my life. It really has. I can go run outside. I love to run. I can go do a run outside without sunglasses on. And I'm like, this is pretty good. I mean, I don't want to sound too giddy or anything, but it has changed my life. It really has. I am happy I did the surgery. I think I'll be even happier once I'm free of all the remaining blood and maybe the remaining little tiny things. But I think 3 months out, I'm definitely very happy that I got it. Very thankful to the surgeon for doing it on me. Right before the surgery, he actually informed me. Literally, I was on the gurney or whatever, and he told me, by the way, you're not the youngest anymore. Somebody beat you. So somebody came in and got surgery like a week before I did, and she was younger than me. I think she's like a graphic designer or something. There's not much else to say. I'm not going to make this incredibly long video continue any longer. Just going to say, well, actually, one more thing. I didn't work out for like a month after the surgery because you don't want to jostle your eye a lot. So I did a lot of walking. That was about it. Feel free to comment below in the video. I'll see if I can answer some of the things. And I'll probably make a follow-up video to this, I think. But other than that, thanks for your time.